There are 195 recognized countries on Earth today. Almost all of them maintain advanced high-tech militaries. But out of that entire global roster, only 10 possess the ultimate destructive force, a nuclear weapon. That is just 5% of the planet. The underlying physics of the bomb have been public knowledge for decades. Today, joining this group requires navigating a ruthless geopolitical gauntlet, an environment of high-stakes espionage, illegal backroom deals, and black market logistics. The starting gun for this global race fired in 1938 when German scientists discovered nuclear fission. Terrified by what Adolf Hitler might do with this knowledge, Albert Einstein warned the American president. That single letter triggered a massive, highly secretive response, the Manhattan Project. The United States poured vast resources into beating Germany to the weapon. By the summer of 1945, they achieved the successful detonation of the Trinity test in New Mexico. Weeks later, the deployment of Fat Man and Little Boy forced Japan's surrender, bringing World War II to a sudden halt. Washington hoped to maintain a permanent monopoly on this technology to enforce global peace. Instead, wielding that immense power created an immediate vacuum of paranoia. Every other major nation realized they were entirely defenseless, and the scramble to steal the bomb began. The Soviet Union had fought alongside America in the war, but they were deeply suspicious of this new American monopoly. When Washington stopped sharing nuclear research, Moscow quietly embedded double agents deep inside the Manhattan Project, siphoning classified designs straight out of the U.S. labs. Those stolen blueprints allowed the Soviets to bypass years of trial and error. In 1949, far earlier than American intelligence predicted, the USSR detonated their own weapon in Kazakhstan, officially kicking off the Cold War. Across the Atlantic, the United Kingdom was dealing with its own fallout. The British had merged their early nuclear research with America's under a formal pact called the Quebec Agreement. But once the war ended, Washington tore up the deal and refused to share the final technology. Cut out and exposed, Britain restarted its independent program, successfully testing a weapon in 1952. France initially wanted nuclear technology purely for electricity. Then came the 1956 Suez Canal crisis. When Egyptian leader Gamal Abdel Nasser nationalized the canal, France and Britain tried to intervene. They were met with severe economic pressure from the US and direct nuclear threats from the Soviet Union. Humiliated and realizing they couldn't rely on allies for protection, France went entirely rogue. They extracted massive amounts of uranium from their colonies in Niger, Gabon, and Madagascar, working relentlessly until they detonated their own weapon in the deserts of the Sahara in 1960. During the Korean War, American forces openly threatened China with nuclear strikes. Chairman Mao concluded that without a bomb, China would be perpetually bullied. When their initial partners in the Soviet Union abruptly withdrew all scientific support in 1959 over political disputes, China mined its own mountains for uranium and forced its way into the nuclear club by 1964. This first wave of global proliferation was not a product of scientific curiosity. These countries built their arsenals because pacts were broken, alliances fractured, and vulnerable nations realized they needed the ultimate deterrent to avoid being bullied by superpowers. By the 1960s, the race moved underground. Israel built a highly classified nuclear facility in absolute secrecy, defying the strict opposition of American President John F. Kennedy. The world only got proof decades later, in 1986, when a technician named Mordecai Vanunu leaked photos of the operation to the British press. The Israeli government's response was swift and ruthless. Mossad agents orchestrated an elaborate honey trap to lure Vanunu to Italy, where he was drugged, kidnapped, and smuggled back to Israel to spend 18 years in prison. Around the same time, South Africa was facing complete global isolation. Severe international boycotts over their discriminatory apartheid laws cut them off from the world economy, while Soviet-backed forces were simultaneously gaining ground in neighboring Angola and Namibia. Cornered, South Africa found a willing partner in Israel. The two geographically isolated nations struck a desperate underground bargain. Israel would share its classified nuclear research, and South Africa would supply the raw uranium. This alliance culminated in the mysterious 1979 Vela incident, where an American satellite detected a massive double flash in the ocean near South Africa, widely believed by experts to be a joint nuclear test. Remarkably, following the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1990, South Africa reversed course and became the only nation in history to completely dismantle its nuclear arsenal. The history of Israel and South Africa shows that global sanctions often fail to force a country to abandon its defense ambitions. Instead, they drive outcast nations into the shadows, pushing them to form dangerous, untrackable underground alliances. That underground reality fully surfaced in South Asia. India managed to bypass international watchdogs by using peaceful Western nuclear reactors as a cover. They imported technology from Canada and the US, secretly weaponized it, and blew a massive crater in the Rajasthan desert in 1974 with a test they named Smiling Buddha. That detonation triggered absolute panic across the border in Pakistan. Viewing India's bomb as a direct threat to their existence, a Pakistani scientist named Abdul Qadir Khan went to work at a Dutch nuclear facility. While there, he quietly stole the highly classified blueprints for uranium enrichment centrifuges and smuggled them back home. Using those stolen designs, and with heavy backing from China, Pakistan spent the next 2 decades engineering their own weapon. When India conducted a new series of tests in 1998, Pakistan immediately responded with their own underground detonations. This chart visualizes the illicit trade network that followed. Khan didn't stop at building Pakistan's arsenal. He commercialized the process. He established a global black market pipeline, eventually trading nuclear centrifuge blueprints directly to North Korea in exchange for their advanced ballistic missile designs. Thanks to that illicit exchange, North Korea shocked the globe with successful detonations in 2006 and 2009. The Hermit Kingdom proved that even a nation completely cut off from the global economy could buy its way into the nuclear club if it found the right seller. Over 60 years, the barrier to entry had totally eroded. What began as a monumental feat of state-funded elite science in 1945 ended as a transactional, black market commodity. The current nuclear club was formed by a specific pressure. Each of these 10 nations faced an existential threat, felt abandoned by their allies, and chose to breach international law to ensure their survival. Global watchdogs and strict treaties are significant hurdles, yet they have never permanently stopped a sufficiently paranoid or isolated government from completing the journey to the weapon. And the machine is still spinning toward the next conflict. Right now, the Middle East is holding its breath over the extreme tension between Israel, the region's only current nuclear power, and Iran, which has been pushing its enrichment capabilities closer to the finish line every year. If Tehran succeeds, it will likely force the hands of its rivals. Saudi Arabia has already stated that if Iran builds a bomb, the Saudis will immediately acquire their own to match it. The chain reaction that ignited in the sands of New Mexico back in 1945 never actually reached its end. The physics remain the same, the geopolitical fears remain the same,